It's pretty amazing how a film from the 1950s can still creep us out, you know? But the bad seed definitely gets under your skin.
Oh, for sure. It's like a little time capsule of our deepest fears,
Yeah,
right? All those worries about what's hiding behind those perfect smiles, those perfect families.
exactly. And it just goes to show, I think, how timeless those anxieties really are. We're still drawn to stories about hidden darkness, about the potential for evil lurking beneath the surface.
Totally. And the bad seed really digs into those fears, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, the basic premise alone is enough to give you chills, right? A seemingly sweet, innocent little girl.
Who might be a cold-blooded killer.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, whoa, hold on a minute. But it's more than just a creepy story, isn't it? There's a lot going on beneath the surface, which is why we're here, folks. To take a deep dive into this classic thriller, to unpack its themes, its controversies, and its lasting impact on our cultural psyche.
Absolutely. And to understand how a film from 1956 still resonates so deeply with audiences today.
Exactly. So let's set the stage a little bit. We're in 1950s America, a time when the image of the perfect family was everything.
Right. Think perfectly coiffed hair, neatly pressed dresses, and not a single toy out of place.
Oh, yeah. I can practically hear the soothing sounds of Perry Como on the hi-fi and smell the freshly baked apple pie cooling on the windowsill.
Exactly. It was all about appearances, about projecting this image of normalcy, of wholesomeness. But beneath that carefully constructed facade,
Lurked a whole lot of secrets and anxieties.
precisely, and the bad seed taps into that tension perfectly. It takes us inside this seemingly idyllic world and then slowly peels back the layers to reveal the darkness that lies beneath.
It's like those perfectly placed pineapple rings on top of the casserole are starting to rot from the inside out.
Exactly. And at the center of it all is 8-year-old Rhoda Penmark.
Our little angel of death.
Well, she certainly looks the part of the perfect child, doesn't she? With her blonde curls, her impeccable manners, and her adoring parents. But then, during a school picnic, a tragic accident occurs. A young boy, one of Rhoda's classmates, drowns.
And this is where things take a dark turn. Suspicion starts to swirl.
Right. And those closest to Rhoda start to notice that something's not quite right with this little girl.
It's subtle at first, right? Like, is that a flicker of something in her eyes when she hears about the boy's death? Or am I just imagining things?
Right. It's that expertly crafted tension that makes the film so unsettling. The filmmakers do a brilliant job of planting these seeds of doubt in the viewer's mind. You're never quite sure if Rhoda is truly capable of something sinister, or if it's just our imaginations running wild.
And that's where that missing penmanship medal comes in, right?
Ah, yes. The missing medal. A seemingly insignificant detail, yet it becomes a pivotal piece of the puzzle.
It's like that one loose thread that, when you pull on it, unravels the entire sweater.
Precisely. Rhoda desperately coveted this medal. She was convinced she deserved it. But when it goes missing,
Well, let's just say that Rhoda isn't exactly known for her graceful handling of disappointment.
no, she isn't. And that's what makes her such a fascinating character to dissect. Her reactions to even the slightest setbacks are so intense.
Over the top.
Yeah, there's a real chilling intensity to them. And it's these seemingly small moments that begin to paint a very disturbing picture of Rhoda's inner world.
It's like watching a pressure cooker about to explode.
Hmm.
You know something bad is going to happen, but you just don't know when or how.
Exactly. And the film doesn't shy away from the possibility that Rhoda's behavior might be rooted in something much deeper, much more sinister than just childhood tantrums.
You're talking about the idea of her being born evil, right? Like it's in her genes or something.
Right. Now remember, this was the 1950s. The field of psychology was still in its relative infancy, and the idea that someone, especially a child, could be born evil was a chilling concept that was just beginning to be explored.
It was pretty revolutionary for its time, wasn't it? I mean, this idea that someone could be hardwired for evil, that their very nature could be corrupted from birth.
It really was, and it tapped into those deep-seated anxieties that people had, and I'd argue still have, about the nature of good and evil.
Right, like where does evil come from? Is it something we're born with, or is it something that's nurtured in us?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The whole nature versus nurture debate. And the bad seed really delves headfirst into that discussion.
It's like the film is holding up a mirror to our own deepest fears about human nature. It makes you wonder, are some people simply born bad?
Exactly. And it doesn't offer any easy answers, which is part of what makes it so unsettling.
It's one thing to suggest that someone might be born evil, but the film goes even further, doesn't it? It connects Rhoda to a family history of evil.
That's right, the revelation about Christine's mother, Rhoda's grandmother, adds a whole new layer of creepy to the story, you know what I mean?
It's like the film is saying, oh, by the way, Rhoda's grandmother was a suspected serial killer. Just a casual bit of family history.
Right. Like, no big deal.
Yeah.
But it totally changes how you see Rhoda, right?
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if evil is, like, hereditary.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
is Rhoda predisposed to this darkness? Is it in her blood? It's heavy stuff to think about.
Absolutely. It really makes you question how much of who we are is predetermined, right? Like, how much control do we really have over our own nature?
And the film doesn't give you any easy answers, does it? If anything, it gets even more complicated when you consider how Christine's own fears and suspicions might be influencing Rhoda.
Oh, for sure. Christine is like a living example of that whole self-fulfilling prophecy thing.
It's tragic, really. The more Christine suspects Rhoda, the more she withdraws from her, the more she scrutinizes her every move. You can almost see the fear and suspicion shaping their relationship, pushing Rhoda further down a doomed path.
Right? It becomes this vicious cycle. Christine's fear fuels Rhoda's behavior, and Rhoda's behavior reinforces Christine's fear. It's a real chicken or the egg situation.
And it makes you wonder, what if Christine had reacted differently? What if she had responded to Rhoda's behavior with love and understanding instead of fear and suspicion? Could things have turned out differently? Could Rhoda have been saved?
Ah, man, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, I don't think there's a simple answer. While I do believe that environment plays a huge role in shaping a child, especially with all the research we have now, you can't deny that genetics can play a part in all this too, right?
Right. It's like the bad seed is saying, hey, this whole nature versus nurture thing, it's complicated.
Exactly. It's a messy mix of factors, and that's what makes it so unsettling to think about. And, what really gets to me is how easily Rhoda manipulates those around her. I mean, she's like a little puppet master.
Oh, yeah, especially with her poor mother. She really knows how to push Christine's buttons, how to exploit her love and guilt. It's like watching someone get gaslighted by an 8-year-old, you know?
It's brutal. It shows just how insidious emotional manipulation can be, especially when it comes from someone you're supposed to trust and protect. It's like Rhoda's weaponized her own supposed innocence.
Right. She uses it as a shield to deflect blame and as a weapon to manipulate those around her. It's scary how calculated it all seems.
Yeah. And that brings us to the film's climax, which, I have to say, is not for the faint of heart.
Talk about a gut punch. Christine, realizing the true extent of Rhoda's actions and terrified of what she might do next, makes a horrifying decision.
Yeah, she decides to take matters into her own hands. Literally, it's a desperate act,
Mhm.
driven by fear and a chilling sense of responsibility for what Rhoda has become.
It's a parent's worst nightmare, right?
Wow.
To realize that your own child is capable of such darkness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the film doesn't shy away from the weight of that realization. You can see the despair and desperation etched on Christine's face.
So she does the unthinkable. She gives Rhoda a lethal dose of sleeping pills, intending to end her daughter's reign of terror once and for all. And then she tries to take her own life.
It's a harrowing scene, one of the most disturbing and emotionally charged moments in the entire film.
And just when you think things can't get any more messed up, the film throws another curveball.
Right, because neither Rhoda nor Christine die.
Talk about a twist. I mean, it makes you wonder, was it fate, divine intervention?
Right. Like, what are we supposed to make of that? It's almost as if the film is saying there are no easy answers, no clean resolutions when it comes to something as complex and terrifying as evil.
And then there's that final scene. Rhoda, seemingly unscathed, walking out into the middle of a raging thunderstorm to retrieve that precious penmanship medal.
Chills, man, chills. Every time.
Seriously, that image of Rhoda just walking into that storm, it's like the film is giving us one last little puzzle to solve before the credits roll. What do you think it means?
Well, for me, it speaks to the whole ambiguity of the film.
Yeah.
Like, we're left wondering, is Rhoda being punished? Or is she being, like, empowered by that storm?
Right, like, is this the end of Rhoda's reign of terror? Or just the beginning?
Exactly. It's that open-endedness that makes the bad seed so darn unsettling.
And it makes you think about the whole nature of evil, doesn't it? I mean, is it something that can be punished or eradicated? Or is it just something that exists in the world, like a force of nature?
Man, those are some heavy questions, and I don't think the film gives us any easy answers. But you know what? That's one of the things that makes the bad seed so compelling. It doesn't shy away from the darkness. If anything, it embraces it.
It does. And it forces us to confront those uncomfortable truths about human nature, about the potential for evil that might exist within us all. And that's a pretty powerful thing for a film to do, especially one made back in the 1950s. So even though The Bad Seed might be a product of its time, dealing with those anxieties of the post-war era, the Cold War.
For sure, those anxieties about conformity and hidden threats, all that.
Yeah. But even though it's rooted in that specific time, the themes it explores, those fears about good and evil, about the darkness hidden within seemingly perfect families, those are timeless, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And that's why I think The Bad Seed continues to resonate with audiences today. It's a film that gets under your skin, that stays with you long after you've seen it, and makes you think twice about that sweet little lady who lives down the street. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Because you never know what might be lurking beneath the surface, right? Well, folks, I think we've just scratched the surface of this complex and deeply unsettling film. The Bad Seed is a wild ride, a psychological thriller that will stay with you long after the credits roll. And it's a reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we create ourselves. So, the next time you're feeling brave and you're in the mood for a film that will make you question everything, give The Bad Seed a watch. Just don't blame us if you have nightmares.